Hi, this is Miss Renzi again, and this is the pre-recorded lesson for May 20 and 21. That's Wednesday and Thursday. So if you missed the live Zoom, you can catch the lesson here and hopefully still get the work done. Okay, let's get started. Today's lesson is called Myth versus Reality in the Founding of Rome. So we're going to look at the way that the Romans created their city and the way that they told people later that they had created their city. We're going to look at the myth first, then the reality, and then I'm going to instruct and preview on the work. The myth. So the Romans like to tell the story about how their great city was created and founded. This story takes place a long time ago because it's a myth. Nobody really knows when. On the banks of the Tiber River, which the Tiber River is the river that flows through Rome. There was no city there at that time. There were just 7 beautiful grass-covered hills and a lazy winding river that led to the sea. As the story goes, there was this evil king named Emulius, and he had heard that his niece, Rhea, would have children who would one day take over his kingdom and kill him. So Rhea gave birth to 2 twin boys. She named them Romulus and Remus, and this is a random picture of 2 babies in a basket that I found on the internet. So cute. But the evil king didn't care how cute babies in a basket are. He kidnapped these children and he abandoned them to die in the grass near the Tiber River. In the myth, the evil king did not know that his niece's children were fathered by the god of war, Mars. We're calling him Mars now because we're in Rome. He's the same guy as Ares, but we're in Rome now. So these babies were half god and half human. They're what's called heroes because they're half god and half human, and they were destined for greatness. So the babies obviously did not die. A mother wolf came and kept them alive by feeding them her own milk and then later on some meat. And when the boys got a little bit older, they were rescued by a shepherd. His name was Faustulus, and they were raised as humans by this shepherd. When the boys got older, it's kind of a long story. We don't really need to talk about it too much, but they went back to their home country and they killed their evil uncle and they rescued their mom and they were offered to be kings of this country and they just said no. They wanted to form their own city. And so they went back to the spot on the Tiber River where they had been left to die and they decided to establish a city there. But they could not agree on which of those beautiful 7 hills that I mentioned they should build their city. And being the sons of Mars, remember, they're the sons of the gods of war, they always could find something to argue about. And they had this big fight about which hill to build their city on. And in the end, they actually got violent and Romulus killed Remus. So they don't call it Reme because Romulus was the winner. They call it Rome because Romulus won. So he built the city where he wanted it to be. He picked a hill called the Palatine Hill, and Palatine Hill is still there today. You can still go there if you ever went to visit Rome. He named the city after himself, Rome, and eventually, over time, it became the most feared, powerful, and strongest city in the world. Okay, and then there's a beautiful picture of the ruins of Rome. Today, if you were to go there, that's what you would see. Okay, so that's the myth. Romulus and Remus find the city, have an argument, and one brother kills the other. They're the sons of Mars, and they're raised by wolves, so they're really tough, really fearsome, really maybe cruel. Okay. The reality is a little bit different. Oops, here comes gravity. Here's reality. So the Romans invented the story about themselves long, long after their city was actually huge and very powerful and feared and strong, is what this slide says. It's not the truth. Archaeologists have dug up Rome and they have studied the earliest writings of the Roman writers, and they found a very different kind of beginning. And you can see I've got a picture here of a very humble looking village. Rome was not always this huge big city full of big marble buildings. Originally, it was a pretty humble little village, not fancy at all. And the land around Rome was a bog, it was a swamp. So this happened in about the year 700 BCE, which means about 2,700 years ago. And there was this small tribe of people, and they were named the Latins. They were nomadic, which I think you guys know, but nomadic means that they moved around. They didn't have a home country to call their own. And they were squeezed between two neighboring groups of people, and they were looking for some land that didn't have anyone living on it. And this land was marshy and swampy, and the hills made it a little bit more difficult to farm because they're pretty steep hills. And so no one was living on it, not because it was paradise, but because no one wanted it. So the early Romans, the Latins, figured this is the place for us. No one's going to try to fight us for this land. They were the runt of the litter. So they were on this boot-shaped peninsula called Italy, right? We call it Italy now. And there were a lot of different people living there. There were a group of people called the Etruscans, and their land was called Etruria. On the map, it's the purple land. And it's this huge land that was north and south of their little area, the Latins' little area. And to the south, further to the south, they had these neighbors called the Greek colonists. They're pictured in orange, and they were over from Greece, which we learned about in February. Maybe you don't remember, it was a long time ago, but we learned about Greek people leaving Greece because the land was not very good, going to other places to farm and send money back and food back to Greece. So one of the places they landed was the toe of the high-heeled boot of Italy. That's the orange land. And so the Latins are Romans. They carved out this tiny little triangular shaped land, and they called it Latium. It's yellow in the map. So it's right in the middle. It's like on the kneecap of the high-heeled boot. They farmed the land around them. They lived in this village that was called Rome. And over the next few hundred years, they slowly built up this image to themselves and to their neighbors as being really fierce and cruel warriors. So this slide is called Fake It Till You Make It, because the Romans believed their own hype, right? They started telling this myth about themselves, about Romulus and Remus, and they started being really tough to their neighbors, talking tough and starting fights, kind of, trying to show they were the alpha, of the group. And as time passed, each generation of Romans believed more and more strongly that they were the sons of Mars and they were raised by wolves. They're going to be tough, frightening, and they were going to conquer everyone around them and be number one. The Romans slowly started conquering their neighbors to the south and to the north, and about 500 years after they started, by 270 BCE, they ruled the entire boot of Italy. So the entire land from that other slide that had purple and orange and yellow on it only has yellow on it by 270 BCE. Okay. So what's today's work? Well, what you're going to do is you're going to have a reading, and it basically recaps what I've just said. So the reading is basically just the story of the myth and then the story of the reality. And I'm not going to read it out loud in this video, one, because I think it would take a really long time, but two, and more importantly, because it's a Google Doc. So you can actually, please do use your Google Read and Write, your purple puzzle piece. If you want it read aloud, you can have it done that way. So in today's work, you can read that reading for a refresher of any facts that, I went too quickly on, or you missed the first time, or hey, you're just tired of the sound of my voice. I don't know, it happens to some people. You can use the Google Doc to refresh yourself, and you're going to answer 3 questions. I'm holding up 2 fingers. 3 questions in the Google form, the purple Google form like usual. Okay, I think what I would like to do is just preview the Google form so you can see the questions. So I'm going to escape from the slideshow and show you the Google form. So it's 3 questions. The first question is based on the text. What is one important difference between the myth and the reality? The second question is based on the text. If you were a Roman, which would you prefer, the myth and the reality, and why? This one has a 2 to 3 sentence minimum. I really won't count work that isn't 2 to 3 sentences, so please make sure you're doing the minimum. And then the last question says, the Romans thought of themselves as the sons of Mars, raised by wolves, because they wanted to be thought of as frightening, strong, and cruel. If you were to think of yourself in a similar way as being the son or the daughter of a god or a goddess, and raised by an animal that you share different qualities with, Who would you pick? What animal would you pick? So I'd like you to try to do one below. So I'm going to give you an example. The first is the Roman example, and then I'm going to give you my example. And I hope that's enough for you to do one of your own. So Romans, sons of Mars, and raised by wolves because they are, let's say, strong, frightening, and cruel. Miss Renzi, raised by dolphins, daughter of Athena. And why? Because I am wise like Athena, I'm curious like a dolphin, and I love learning new things. Actually, if you look at the form, it says, because I have a big forehead. That's just a joke, right? You don't have to include a negative statement about your physical appearance to have a right answer. I was just trying to be funny, probably unsuccessfully, but I hope that this has been enough for you to understand what it is I'm asking you to do. Don't forget to press submit to get credit for your work. And if you don't understand the work, you need help, you can always feel free to email me or text me at 617-804-1403. Thank you so much, and I hope you have a lovely day or night. Who knows when you're watching this video? I do not know. Okay, bye-bye.